like to see Staten Island develop in a direction that hasn't been followed by the other boroughs, at least Queens and the Bronx, which once had the opportunity. I'd like to see Staten Island take advantage of its greatest asset, which is open space.
When we were discussing this with members of the City Planning Commission years ago, they said to us, "What do you want on Staten Island, another Westchester?" And we said, yes, why not?
The island's a mess from what the builders have done to it. The way they build the houses so close together, it's knocked down all the trees.
I have something to say because I've been living on the island all my life. And it used to be beautiful. But it's not beautiful no more. We don't even have trees anymore. They're putting houses up like boxes.
We think there's a chance to improve the standards of development, and that really is my principal mission, to see what can be done to improve our standards and to improve our image, to give Staten Island an image of quality and an image of success.
I think that Staten Island can be developed properly. It can be developed logically, but we need a little time to catch up for the years during which Staten Island has, in fact, been the forgotten borough.
In 1964, a huge population explosion was predicted for Staten Island. That was the year the Verrazano Bridge was opened, linking Staten Island with Brooklyn and providing the island's first direct land link to the rest of New York City. Staten Island, protected by a wide moat of water from the rest of the city, had been spared many of the city's problems, as well as its opportunities, and the new bridge was to be the island's bridge to the present. The island, the borough of Richmond, would be leaving behind its past of quiet middle-class communities, acres of open space, and small old towns bearing less resemblance to New York City than to its closest land neighbor, New Jersey, to which it is linked by 3 bridges. Several factors conspired to abort the predicted boom: tight money for building loans and mortgages, inadequate transportation to and on the island, and inadequate utilities, most notably sewers. An initial upsurge in population did occur, about 10,000 new residents a year, but that growth has now tapered off. There is unexpected time to consider the changes that occurred on the island in the past 4 years and to form judgments for the future. The greatest change on the island took place in housing. 12,000 new units in the past 4 years. Most newcomers moved into 1 or 2 family houses that sprouted up in large developments all over the island. The plots were small, 40 to 60 by 100 on the average. The prices relatively high, $20,000 to $30,000 for half a duplex, $30,000 to $40,000 for a 1-family. The houses stood with uniform rigidity on the gridiron street pattern laid out on old, unofficial city maps. Acres of trees were destroyed. The homes were criticized for their lack of individuality and high prices, but builders maintained that was what the market called for. Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd Maklovitz moved to Staten Island a year and a half ago. Their home, a 2-family in a large development, is in the Graniteville section of the island.
We're both originally from Brooklyn. We moved to Queens. We lived in an apartment. Then we came out to Staten Island. We have our own home. We love our home. We have our own backyard where our children can come out and play and go in and out as they please. We all put up fences maybe for the fact that we know this is our piece of property, this is our land, and this is for the children to play on and have their fun with their friends.
The houses, to some extent, would be considered look-alikes, but are actually, they vary them to a slight extent as much as they can, so that your house is an individual based on coloring that you may put to it. It's not what I would call a look-alike, even though they may seem to be one close to the other.
The city maintains that people accept these houses because builders aren't giving them any choice. As an alternative, it is encouraging planned unit development, cluster homes or townhouses and apartments built around parks to accommodate more people and preserve open space. Only one island developer is planning to try it, Lawrence Simons. Simons, who is president of the State Builders Association, tells how builders feel about planned communities.
We call ourselves merchant builders, and I think most of the builders on Staten Island are known as merchant builders. We are building for the mass market. Our object is to produce a house as inexpensively as possible, compatible with the cost of the land we have here on Staten Island, to give the people most house for the money. We are production builders. We build a house in a production form. We're not custom builders. Planned unit development is a concept of land development whereby natural terrain features are preserved. And as far as the builders are concerned, there's a question as to the marketability. Right now, we know what our market is. We know what we can sell. When we move into townhouse arrangements and community-type living or communal-type living, there may be some question.
Their own homes with their own land may be what people buy, but for many it has turned out to be less than the American dream. There have been widespread construction problems, flooding, unfinished roads, difficulties with septic tanks. Only the north end of the island and scattered other areas are adequately sewered. Mrs. Catherine Singer and Mrs. Jean Melandro are neighbors in a new development in Eltingville.
We moved here about 4 years ago from Brooklyn, and about 2 years after we moved in, we started having trouble with the septic tank. It began backing up into the basement, so we had it emptied a couple of times, but that didn't do any good. So we finally had to have the whole lawn dug up and the system checked out and cleaned. And the man came 3 times that day and emptied it, but as fast as he was emptying it out, it was filling up, so he just filled it up and put it back and said he couldn't do anything further to help us. And my neighbor Jean's had the same problem.
And the worst problem is when you have it cleaned out, they only not even guarantee it. They'll tell you, well, it'll last for maybe 7 to 10 days. And at $25 or $26 a clip, it hurts.
The builder claims he's no longer responsible. After the first year, I think he's not responsible for anything that happens to the plumber. I don't know. I don't know who's responsible.
I feel that, number one, that there should be no more septic tanks. That should be right down the drain. Throw it away. Everything, there should be sewers coming in. They say eventually we get them. We won't get them for maybe another 20 years. If I had it to do all over again, I'd rather stay in an apartment.
And that's what we were thinking, moving back to Brooklyn to an apartment.
Because you've got more responsibility, and you can't even enjoy it. Because every time you turn around, there's something backing up. You can't wash every day.
You take a 30-second shower. My husband even shaves at work, so he won't have to use any water.
And that's another thing. My husband says, don't take showers. Give the children a bath. Like, I'd rather shower. You can't. And I have 4. I just had a set of twins, and I can't wash every day. It's terrible. The only thing I've got to say is to people that are going to buy, don't ever buy a house with septic system in it. Be smart and go and look for sewers.
The city is stopping septic tank home building. New homes will have sewage treatment facilities. But the women aren't far wrong about sewers for the future. Although plans are drawn, a complete system is at least 10 years away. Staten Island's relationship to the city has always been distant in geography as well as feeling. Many islanders find the bridge to Brooklyn expensive, 50 cents one way, and roundabout. The ferry is still a nickel and the most direct route to downtown Manhattan, and so it persists as the principal connection with the city, a romantic relic of the past. About half the island's 300,000 people commute to work, and about half of those to Manhattan. The ferry carries about 25,000 commuters a day. It's a leisurely, half-hour trip without traffic and provides a built-in sightseeing tour. Staten Island has always been low on the list of city priorities. There is evidence on the island to illustrate the point. Transportation facilities are not up to date. Only one bus route crosses the Narrows Bridge. The principal rail service is the Staten Island Rapid Transit, connecting St. George on the north with Tottenville on the south. The railroad cars date back to 1925. St. George's Pier area is badly neglected. A large ice skating rink planned by the city for Clove Lake Park ran into construction difficulties and has been abandoned. The examples can be multiplied. The reason is money and political discretion. The squeaking doors of the more populous boroughs with more urgent problems, as well as more votes, receive most of the city's financial oil. While this is still true, recently the city has taken more interest in the island. 3 new schools have been opened, including this year, the Susan B. Wagner High School, the first new high school building on the island since 1904, when Curtis High School opened. $20 million have been spent on the construction of a new container port to improve the pier area and stimulate port activity. The Lindsay administration has increased the island's capital budget allocation from $45 million to $90 million. The motivation is, at least partially, that Staten Island contains 16,000 undeveloped acres, more than half the city's vacant land. And the city looks to that land for relief of some of its problems, overcrowding and necessary industrial expansion. That's why, with its greater involvement, it's seeking a greater voice. The city wants planned communities, which has caused open conflict with many residents. An example is the controversy surrounding the Planning Commission proposal for the development of 1,100 acres on the South Shore called Annandale Huguenot. Holt Meyer, director of the Staten Island Development Agency, established by Mayor Lindsay, describes the city goal.
We would like to build and develop a community of very high quality, which is open to all income levels, which uses modern planning concepts, curvilinear streets, cul-de-sacs. We also want to see a variety of housing types down there, using the new town concepts that have become so prevalent in other parts of the country. We want New York City to catch up in this regard, and in fact, we have an opportunity to do what no other city has done because we have this vacant land. We want it to be a showcase.
The area was designated for urban renewal 7 years ago on health grounds as a political tool to control development. In fact, the area is not substandard. Even the few rundown homes have the luxury of land. Mrs. Marie Montplaisir leads the opposition to the city plan.
Urban renewal is government intervention in the private property rights of the individual citizen. This is as basic as I can make it. We totally oppose any agency of government coming in here and telling us what to do with our property. We have, we think, a very unusual community here. Development in the area has been scattered. Some of it is all fairly new. Some of it is all older. Others is a combination. It's all been done under a free enterprise system. We don't consider our area substandard and insanitary the way the city has declared it to be. We think that under the free enterprise system, more of this will develop. We have areas that would be very suitable for parks. We have an area with the last stand of silver beaches on Staten Island, probably in New York City. There are several beautiful ponds. We have the shorefront down here being eroded at a rapid rate, and we need the shorefront drive down there to stop this erosion. We feel that the city can do everything to make this a beautiful community by upgrading the zoning. We have consistently asked them to do this for over 7 years.
Upgrading zoning would prevent mass development, but it would also mean fewer, more expensive homes. The city wants open space, but it also wants more homes for more people, an outlet for its masses. To the community, this means city problems, overcrowding, and social antagonisms, and that is precisely what all islanders want to avoid. That's why they live there. The island is strongly conservative. The population is overwhelmingly middle class. About 70% are Catholic, predominantly Irish and Italian. 40% of the school children attend parochial schools. The island also has its so-called quiet millionaires, many of them Wall Street businessmen, who live in scattered Westchester-like areas of expensive homes. The Negro population, about 25,000, is concentrated on the North Shore, a rundown area that could use but hasn't received city attention. But even here, conditions are good, in contrast to other ghetto areas of the city. Negroes can't easily buy homes elsewhere on the island, but there's been no outward hostility. Most of the island's elected officials are conservative Republicans. One is Borough President Robert Connor, who sums up the islanders' feelings toward the rest of the city.
I think that on Staten Island, we have an enormously independent grouping of people here. They perhaps don't like the city telling them exactly what they must do and all that. There is a tremendous sentiment for more home rule here, which I happen to share. But I think that the city has done a rather poor job in presenting what they believe should be done on Staten Island. For example, in urban renewal, the people have seen one area that is quite attractive, designated for urban renewal. They see another area which has a crying need for urban renewal, or at least some sort of rehabilitation, being ignored. I think that the comparison, for example, of these two areas make the people wonder whether the city administrations in Manhattan really know what Staten Islanders want.
John Mitchell is a conservationist. He is one of the local residents opposing the construction of a parkway, Richmond Parkway, through what is called the island's Greenbelt. A north-south highway is badly needed on the island, as are many new roads, but progress is bogged down here, as elsewhere, in controversy. Borough President Connor leads the support for the route through the Greenbelt, originally proposed prior to 1945 by Robert Moses of the Verrazano Bridge and Tunnel Authority. The mayor has joined the conservationists. He has halted construction and proposed an alternate route skirting the Greenbelt. John Mitchell gives the conservationist view.
The argument against building the original route of the Richmond Parkway involves the use of this land right now. And we have 4 uses, existing recreation and educational uses here. High Rock Nature Conservation Center that last year handled about 40,000 public school children. The Henry Kaufman campgrounds and the Pouch Boy Scout camp between them, serving probably 70 to 80,000 children during the course of a summer. The 4th use, of course, is Latourette Park, which is probably the city's most natural and undeveloped park. It seems to us if you run a highway next to a Boy Scout camp or a day camp or a nature center, you're going to destroy many of the qualities that people come there to experience, such as peace and quiet. It has been our proposal that the highway be relocated and that along this right-of-way, 4.7 miles, we establish a trailway which would include 10 miles of hiking trails. That's bicycle paths, fishing facilities, and a whole variety of passive recreation opportunities that don't exist anywhere in New York City. I think I speak for well over 100,000 people. If you consider the membership of the civic and conservation organizations in the New York tri-state region. The other side speaks for perhaps the same number of people, I don't know, but it speaks for contractors. It speaks for Detroit.
Just how much land highway construction can claim is shown on the west side of the island, where the West Shore Expressway is being built. Borough President Connor argues for the Moses route.
First of all, the parkway is not going to ruin any greenbelt. If you take a flight over the island, you'll see that we don't have a greenbelt. What we really have is a green core. And it's physically impossible to run a road from the north to the south of Staten Island without going through some part of this area. But more importantly, we are not, in fact, ruining anything. What we are, in effect, doing is opening up the most attractive part of Staten Island for the great majority of our people. Presently, they cannot get to it, and the idea of having a 4.7-mile trailway without service roads and without a means of servicing it and protecting the people on it, I think is ludicrous. We're not talking about some diesel alley going through the middle of the island. We're talking about a very attractive parkway that will have a trailway with it so that the people can use it.
The final decision rests with the federal government. The Tri-State Transportation Commission has approved the Lindsay alternate. The problem is one of time, money, and aesthetics. The proposed Lindsay route is longer, and relocation would delay construction. A $1 million cloverleaf intersection connecting the Moses route with the Staten Island Expressway is completed and would be useless in the alternate plan. Section 2 at the southern end has also been completed and now leads to a strange halt, awaiting further directions. In a way, that strange halt is symbolic of the point at which the whole of Staten Island is today, paused, awaiting direction, in a deadlock of conflicting forces and values. Beauty against utility. Private interests against public needs. The political interests of the city against the political interest of the borough.
What we're doing today probably should have been done 10 years ago. I find that a good part of my job is stopping horrors from happening. Planning is long overdue. Certainly this means delay, but never again will we have the chance to plan. It's now or never.
We do have plans for arterial highways. We do have plans for sewers. We do have plans for recreational facilities, parks, and all that. And surprisingly enough, there is money in the budget for the great majority of these items, but they're just piled up one after the other and kept on the back burner. This really is what Staten Island needs, an implementation of the plans and a termination of what I have been calling the performance gap by the city administrations on Staten Island.
What strikes one most about Staten Island today is its still enormous potential. Acres of unspoiled land, endless stretches of naturally exquisite beach, now spoiled by pollution, erosion, and neglect. The charm of the island's distance and nearness to the heart of the city. But even in the partial pause of progress, one is rarely out of earshot of the bulldozer, a constant reminder that the time for decision and direction in the development of Staten Island is growing late. This is Bill Ryan for New York Illustrated.